Well, here we are, Thursday night, December 4th. It is 6:38 p.m. It is 27 degrees here in Michigan. It is cold as fuck. And after barely getting any sleep last night, working all day, going for an hour, about 45-minute walk on my lunch, and just being cold to the bone, the last thing I want to do is come out here and work out. So that's exactly what I'm going to do, is come out here and work out. We've got shoulders and back today. I'm not giving myself any excuses. I can go take a nice hot shower after this shit. So I'm going to get this in and get it done. Keep moving forward. Escape the matrix. Start here with a warm-up set. Move up from there. It's just been one of those days where ever since this morning I've just been cold to the bone. I can't shake it. So, gotta start getting that blood flowing. I want to get some back mixed in with today's workout. So I hit back pretty hard earlier this week. So in between every workout for shoulders that I do, I'm going to do 5 pull-ups on the beam, the wooden beam.
If I see somebody who's accomplished what I want to, like Chuck Adams back in the day, I would say, instead of hate on Chuck, I would say, what can I do? How can I experience that type of life, right? And so it's like an inspiration, or it helps me set a goal, a big goal. And it's not to slight any other man. You know, we use other men as measuring sticks. And I remember Roy and I we'd go on hunts and we'd say, well, has any man ever done this? And if a man has done it, we thought that we could do it. We're men too. So if somebody else did it, we can do it. And that's the mindset. These guys we're talking about here, guaranteed they're not even worried about anybody else, any other man. They're not, like, it's not even on their radar. They're focused on their own goals, what they can do. Ours are Snyder's, and we'll try to have some fun together. Our best wishes to you for all you do, your friend Bob Wittnauer. But this book, as I said, is incredible, impactful. Paul and Bart both shot like super high poundage bows, and these are recurves. And a lot of people these days, you say you shoot a high poundage bow, they're like, oh, you're doing it for ego, or you could do the same thing with the 70 or 60 pound bow. It's just like, it doesn't even make sense to me. These guys weren't worried about what anybody else is shooting for a bow or the poundage, or it's just a non-factor. It's a non-factor for people like this. The next archer I was going to discuss is Dwight Schrute, because Dwight Schrute, he wrote a great article about hunting with Roy. That they write better than they hunt. I mean, they can just tell a story, and who knows how much fact or fiction is involved, maybe a little more fiction than fact, and then you meet them and you're like, oh, yeah, it's not really adding up. Because you can tell pretty quickly if somebody has what it takes to be a good hunter. You can fake it on paper. It's tough to fake in person. So M.R. writes, continues on about Dwight. Other writers have talents which are not limited to telling tales and attempting to impress their readers with glowing accounts of their accomplishments. These people are good writers and good hunters. Their articles entertain and inform. They tell it as it is. Share a hunting camp with them and you'll generally walk away impressed. Dwight Shue is one such writer. So that's regarding Dwight. And Dwight wrote an incredible book. I have it here also. It's called Bow Hunting for Mule Deer. Just a legendary book. I probably should have went back to school, but I was too busy bow hunting. So there was a time though, before I'm gonna get into this right now. 2006 was, there's a long time ago, obviously. And I got to give a shout out too. So I knew I could not find, I have so many magazines here. You see all these books, you see all these, it's like, if there could be a mad scientist on bow hunting, not so much bow hunting, just not the technical stuff. I know my bow, but I know the adventure. It's the adventure. It's like what it does to a person's life living out there in the mountains. That's what I care about. The bow, yes, I love archery, but it's more about the adventure. So I'm not like this gear tech freak on archery. I'm more of, I love the adventures of these guys out there making Hall of Famer. What do you say? So the Deliverance, and the subtitle here to this article is The Wilds of Alaska. God, let me start this over. The Wilds of Alaska might very well teach a bow hunter more about life than about hunting. So that was his byline, or his subtitle there. The article starts off, I was worried. Never before had I met Roy Roth, and now he and I would spend 2 weeks alone together on Kodiak Island. It all started with my friend Bob Amin. I call Bob the Sitka King because he's a fanatic for hunting Sitka blacktail deer. That's the they live on Kodiak Island. It's a subspecies of the Columbia blacktail, and they're awesome animals. So Dwight continues, he's probably killed as many Sitka deer as any bow hunter alive, and some of the biggest. When Bob invited me to hunt deer with him on Kodiak Island to record a program for Bow Hunter magazine, they set up camp, and then Roy takes off up the ridge. Big Roy, mind you, this is the couch potato that Dwight labeled him as originally. Roy takes off up the ridge, and Dwight's trying to keep up, and while he's trying to keep up, Roy killed a fox and a buck with his bow. How insane is that? So, again, this isn't me telling these stories about Roy. This isn't somebody who makes stuff up. This is Dwight Shue, who's been around forever, and one of the most authentic, talented writers there is. He knows it like it is. So that's what he's saying about Roy. The next day, this is Dwight again. The next day, I shot a buck at 15 yards as he trailed a doe. After dressing the deer and bagging the meat, we continued on up the canyon and saw a buck cruising down the hillside, obviously looking for does. When we spotted our doe hats, he came to check us out. Roy made that a fatal mistake. With 2 deer on the ground, we called it a day and packed meat back to camp. But Roy, 3 full-grown cubs, which means, the cubs can survive on their own. They're probably 300 pounds, but they hang out with their mom, even past when they don't need her to survive, but it's just kind of, sometimes full-grown cubs hang out after their yearlings, and so she had 3 full-grown cubs there. So it might have been the situation with the boar and the blood and the yelling and the shooting and the cubs. All of it made her crazy. So she comes over, stands up, puffing and puffing, popping, doing everything she's doing. And Roy still, we were like yelling at her, hey, get out of here, get out of here. Weather changed with the wind hitting 50 to 70 miles per hour, snow flying, the river freezing along the edges. We returned to base camp and the dependable shelter of our big tent. November 9th was our last scheduled day of hunting. Roy had 1 tag left, but things were not looking favorable. A full-fledged blizzard had set in with winds of 50 miles per hour and heavy snow. At times, visibility was less than 30 feet. The reasonable response would have been to stay in the tent to ride out the storm. However, Roy had a deer tag left and he was going hunting. We plunged through the deepening snow, checking protected draws where deer might seek shelter. For an hour, we did not see a deer, but then, through the curtain of blowing snow, we made out a buck battered with a doe. Crawling through the snow, we got within 40 yards, but Roy did not have a clear shot, and we could get no closer. For 2 hours, we crouched in the roaring wind, snow hitting us like bullets, waiting for the buck to move. My goal was to shoot video, but in reality, I wanted to run to the tent. I was freezing. Roy wouldn't budge. He was gonna. So then when you get in there by that, and or you need to float down the river to pick a spot to get out, the river cannot be frozen, right? So that's the challenge these guys had at this time. Mercifully, the wind has subsided, but the snow is now 2 feet deep and slabs of slush floated down the icy river. The big question was, how would we fit our 1,200 pounds of gear weighted on the Seahawks scale before the flight out, plus 8 deer into a 12-foot raft? So they killed 8 bucks. That's a lot of deer. Into a 12-foot raft. With his usual finesse, Roy attacked the project. By the time he'd constructed a floating mountain, only one question remained. Where am I supposed to sit? The 100-pound raft and the 15-horse outboard. With all of our gear finally in open water, we again launched the floating mountain. We were jubilant. A mile downstream, we hit more ice. When Roland had mentioned 2 miles of ice, we thought he meant the ice we just portaged around. We were wrong. We spent several hours scouting on foot and learned the next open water, according to my GPS, was exactly 1.8 miles straight line from the raft. Could we do another portage twice as long as the first? I wasn't sure. We have no choice, Roy said confidently. Let's get after it. Once again, we set up camp, and for the next 3 days, 8 hours a day. Now listen, 8 hours a day is pretty much. Roy obviously fell sheep hunting in 2015. Both legends, both gone, but their stories live on. And I'll just wrap this up with this last paragraph here of Dwight's article. In Alaska, nothing inspires joy and triumph like the sight of a long-awaited bush plane. And Roy and I felt those emotions as Roland taxied to the bank of the river to pick us up. Finally, deliverance. Despite our trials, we felt no regrets. After all, we'd had great deer hunting for ruddy and Sitka bucks, and we'd enjoyed endless fun with the decoy hats. Yes, we had our trials, but they simply had taught us a lot about ourselves. We had built a great relationship, and our 3 weeks in the field proved Bob Amin's assessment of Roy Roth absolutely accurate. Above all, the whole experience had reinforced in me the immutable truth